and it looks like Israel might even be thinking twice about doing it. It seems
they've been warned. Yeah, I said they've been warned repeatedly.
The week is not over. The week is not over. Israel has, in their mind, correctly or incorrectly, got the perception that they're in a window right now where they believe that if they can remove nuclear assets sufficiently fast from Iran, that will somehow improve security in the Middle East. That's an interesting assumption, although I'm not sure it's defensible.
That would even be their true motivation either.
Exactly. I mean, we already have Muslim countries with bombs.
Yeah.
Pakistan, for example. Now, Pakistan may not really have its own bombs anymore, because I'm sure the U.S. has offered to provide security for those weapons as long as there's not absolute certainty of control. The Indians today pulled 15,000 troops in the last couple of days out of the contested area of Kashmir as kind of a show of good faith. But don't forget that India, Pakistan continues to be a potential tinderbox that very few people are paying attention to. I mean, that's besides all the other stuff going on, of course.
So what should Americans be watching?
Their butts. I mean, seriously. This is one of those times when you want to already have done your graceful exit from paper assets. You want to be in a position where you go about your work. You've got your food. You've got your favorite recipient of Hoppy's number 7. Or is it number 9? I keep forgetting. Anyway.
Number 9.
Yeah, number 9. I happen to use Royal Purple, but that's a different conversation, I guess.
So everybody should be ready. And so what do you think the chance of the dollar falling apart for sure this year?
I don't think it'll completely fall apart. My expectation is that what we saw in the last week, the decline from, I think it was 10, in fact, I just penciled the numbers out, 10,292 down to 97.62, a normal Fibonacci retracement would push the Dow up to about 99.65. The Dow got up to 99.62. So as far as I'm concerned, the rally ends sometime tomorrow morning, and we go back down again. If this is really just the first wave down. If it is, then we could go as low as, say, 9,400, 9,450, have another brief rally, but typically when we get to one of these major changes in language, where we shift out of release language into building tension language seems to accompany declines in the market, but there's kind of a boundary effect where the language will shift and then the market direction will become apparent a week or two after the language shift has occurred. So right now, it's really clinically interesting. You've got the pipes open, don't you, Cliff?
Sure. Yeah. Started it previous week. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so that'll be very interesting to see it actually come out when we get around to looking at it next week. Yeah.
Yeah, and so what ends up happening? We've been in release language. We see the building tensions beginning. Right now, we're seeing the market this one-day wonder. I explained earlier this week or last week, I guess, something called the Euro ratio. You could look at the price of gold pretty early in the day and make an educated guess as to where the Dow's going to go by taking the price change in gold and multiplying it times 10. So we saw gold pop up today, $19 and change, tack a zero on that, and that would suggest 190 for a gain, and what was the Dow? The Dow was up 199 today. So it's a very useful, kind of back of the envelope way.
But let's also reference, stop right there for a second, reference what that actually is pointing to. What George is saying about this daily shift in gold, you can apply to oil or any of the other commodities relative to the Dow. And it's an indicator of a larger background activity going on. It basically says when they pump the dollar, then the dollar-denominated price of all commodities, including these paper assets, will rise. And this is a direct sign of the weakness of the dollar itself, because it used to be that the plunge protection team a few years back was suppressing the price of gold in order to prop up the markets, the literal Dow. Now they're no longer able to do that. They're out there worrying their butts on maintaining the illusion of the dollar being substantial. And the way they do that has got a rhythm to it that is remarkably similar to the rhythm of the gold suppression years from 2000 on through to, say, 2006. And it doesn't bode well because they won't be able to do it that long. Suppressing the gold market was relatively easy because it's reasonably small. The dollar market is the largest one in the world, and it's beginning to have ramifications. So will the dollar collapse over this year? It's my bet that we'll lose, say, another third of the purchasing power before the end of December. But what form that will take is going to be really interesting because, for instance, we're already seeing the food riots in India and the potential for rationing. They're redoing their tax structure, a real sign of government in distress in order to try and encourage imports of food into India. And it's just the beginning of a wave that will sort of pretty much go around the rest of the planet with that. So I suspect that component, at least insofar as their tax structure and the cost of rising hyperinflation in food for India, is directly related to the dollar at this point, and it's decoupling as the petrodollar. Bear in mind that the Saudis basically have said they're no longer going to use West Texas crude as a indicator for quality of oil and pricing. And so it's kind of a backhanded way of saying we're dropping the dollar on this particular level. Now, I think it was T. Boone Pickens that said a number of years back that when the dollar died, it would be in little starts, little fits and starts, as various different kinds of oil contracts were abandoned. And sure enough, here we go.
Now that doesn't mean we can't have violent rallies. In the very, very short term, this week, China probably got obviously, the president doesn't issue authority to transfer missile parts technology and missiles per se to China unless somebody's actually doing something. And the fact that as we are within a few days of the Commerce Secretary presumably affecting that transaction, we can expect violent rallies in the dollar along its general decline. That's very typical of what happened in the Great Depression, too, by the way. Everybody thinks, the Depression was a terrible event straight down, and it's never the case. You see a long-term trend develop down in a market, and it's punctuated with these violent 1- and 2-day wonder rallies. And I think that what we saw today was just a fine example of a running of the shorts, and so we'll see tomorrow when the market opens. But I'd be surprised if the market closed over 10,000 this week. It's possible, but hey, anything's possible.
Well, that's for sure. Phil, you guys are thinking that what transpired this week is going to slowly take effect over the next month in November. So what should the signs should folks be looking for in November?
Well, one thing that we're expecting is that the economic nature that's been revealed to us in the background here with the collapse of the commercial real estate lending component, which, by the way, no one's offering to bail that out, you notice, and the separation of the dollar via the Saudis as well as the Iranians separating from the dollar. They won't sell their oil to anybody in dollars anymore. Significant thing. We went to war with Saddam over that, regardless of how many weapons of mass destruction were claimed by the moron Bush. So, it was really all about the dollar. And so the scene has radically changed. We're no longer out there enforcing the supremacy of the dollar with our military, and now we're trying to buy it by selling components of our military, as George pointed out here, by the idea of maybe China will help prop up our dollar a while if we give them a bunch of missiles or missile technology or, supercomputers or whatever it is that they want. The issue for us is that... Yeah, go ahead, George.
Yeah, I was just going to say that what really, if you're trying to play along at home, the question is how much do you have to give somebody who is trying to blackmail you? And so China is right now probably laughing hysterically at those silly people from the U.S.